American soccer fans, welcome to episode 191 of the USA Soccer Cast. We're bringing you everything about the U.S. national teams, the players, the leagues, and everything else that impacts a game of soccer in these United States. I'm Donald Wine, and we have a great interview for you today. I was able to recently sit down with my friend Tracey Reavis, who is a veteran sports journalist and an author, and she has written a new book. It's called United States Soccer on This Day, a 365-day journey of games, goals, and moments in U.S. men's national team history. Now, this is an amazing concept for me because it's almost like those calendars that we had growing up, right? Where you could pull off and every day you got a new fact about something. And whether it was history, whether it was a math problem, whether it was something about literature, a poem, there's millions of these types of 365-day calendars. And Tracey said, let's figure something out for soccer, for the men's national team, and let's talk about the history of this program in 365 days. What happened on each day of the year, something that affects American soccer and affects the U.S. men's national team. So here's that interview with Tracey Reavis. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back after this.
This is what everyone's talking about.
Everything's on the table.
This is what champions come to take. This is what everyone came to see.
And the slam!
No do-overs. No second chances. No more Mr. Nice Guy. This is winner take all. The NBA Finals continue on ABC and the ESPN app.
Hey everyone, are you looking for the latest gear for your U.S. national teams, Major League Soccer, the NWSL, or any other team in the world of soccer? The USA Soccer Cast has affiliate partnerships that are ready to help you out. Head to linktree.com/USA Soccer Cast, where we have links to Homage, Fanatics, the MLS Store, and Breaking Feet. You can get the jersey, shirt, hat, or accessory you're looking for to support your team, while also saving some money and helping this show in the process. Again, linktree.com/USA Soccer Cast. Click on the links and get your gear. And we thank you as always for your support of the show. I'm here with my friend Tracey Reavis, a veteran sports journalist and author who has covered basketball, she's covered American football, baseball, and the Olympics. And I've known Tracey for several years. It feels like close to a decade now. And she has a new, what's that?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. It's been a long time, but you have a new book out. It's called United States Soccer on This Day, a 365-day journey of games, goals, and moments in U.S. men's national team history. The book is literally what the title says, a daily dose of iconic moments in United States men's national team history. Tracey, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate you having you on.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Talk about soccer, U.S. men's national team. Of course, I'm going to say yes.
So let's start with this. What prompted you to create a book that creates a calendar of sorts that chronicles all the biggest moments in U.S. men's national team history?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. I just had this idea because I've been covering the team for a number of years in my newsletter called The Club. And I just thought it would be, we used to have those calendars on your desk where it was like a page a day. You turn over and it would be a new word a day or a new joke a day or a motivational quote. And I thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool if that kind of thing existed with a fun fact about the U.S. men's national team? It would be a fun way to learn about the team and say, oh, whether it was a player's birthday or this a momentous a game that happened. So I thought it would be kind of cool, and it didn't exist. So I said, well, I'm going to create that. And I saw some other examples of like this day in tennis history and this day in golf history, Olympic history, but I didn't want to do it in a calendar format. I ended up doing it in this book format.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a kid, I know I had several different sports history types of those pull off each day a calendar and learn about a different event. But let's talk about some of these days. Give me some of your favorite moments. There's 365 days, really 366 because you include leap day. Which dates stand out to you?
Well, I kind of like divided it into sort of this. There's historic foundational events, right? That's like, the 1913 when the U.S. men's national team, the organizing governing body formed, right? Then a year later, 1914, they became a FIFA member, right? And then the first match in 1916, where we played Sweden in Sweden, we won 3-2, the first ever U.S. men's national official event, match. Then the first time they participated in the World Cup, in the first World Cup in 1930, in the inaugural third World Cup. The 13 nations that were invited, the U.S. was one of them, how well we did in that tournament. And then there's the momentous, maybe the top 5 or the top 10 great moments. I mean, some of them are the typical moments that everybody might think about. So, for example, there's, again, like I mentioned, the 1930. Everybody will know that 1930 was the first time we participated in the World Cup, and that we won the first match 3-0. And then that was the first time that a clean sweep was recorded in the World Cup. Then we won the second match versus Paraguay 3-0. And that was the first time a hat trick was scored in the World Cup. And then we got to the semifinal match and we lost 6-1 to Argentina, and Argentina advanced to the final. But we know that was momentous because the United States team had traveled all the way to Uruguay to participate in the inaugural World Cup. Other events that were World Cup matches, of course, the historic 1950 World Cup match, right? We know that they were in group stage, and the second group stage match, the U.S. faced England. Now, of course, England was a powerhouse at that time. The United States team was not considered a powerhouse. And of course, Joe Gaichin scores this goal in the first half, and the U.S. holds on, and they win that match. And it was such a historic win, upset defeat for the U.S. team in 1950. And as a matter of fact, FIFA still considers that 1950 World Cup win by the U.S. upset still like one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. That's how momentous momentous it was. I mean, other World Cup matches, I go back to the 2014 World Cup, which was one of my favorites. And I know that the U.S. was in the group of death, but they, survived that group of death. They got that win versus Ghana. Then they tied, they drew versus Portugal, and then they lost to Germany, but they got out of that group of death and went into the round of 16. And then, of course, that momentous round of 16 match versus Belgium, where Tim Howard, the goalkeeper, had like the match of his life with the World Cup record 16 saves. And even though the team didn't win that match, that was obviously a historic World Cup match. Did I give you 5 already? Other ones would be, other ones would be the 1994, when the U.S. hosted the World Cup. Of course, it was historic because it was the first time the World Cup was here in the U.S. So in the group stage, the U.S. were able to get a draw in that first match versus Switzerland. And that was historic because they were playing in the Pontiac Silverdome. And it was the first time a match had ever been played indoor, a World Cup match had ever been played indoors. Of course, the U.S. was happy to get a draw as the opening match for the World Cup, being the host country. Then in the second match, they played Colombia, and there was that infamous Andres Escobar own goal, which gave the U.S. 1-0 lead. And then Ernie Stewart scored again. And so the U.S. were able to get a 2-0 victory. And that was the first time I think they had a World Cup win in like 40 years, because they hadn't participated in a number of years. So that was the first official World Cup win in, that long of a time. And then I think my last top sort of match, well, maybe 2 others, where there's another World Cup match. A lot of them are World Cup matches. Those are like really exciting, right? Another World Cup match that was exciting was the 2002 World Cup, where they advanced to the round of 16 to face Mexico. Yeah, to face Mexico, of course, their rival. And they were able to win that game 2-0. Brian McBride scored, Landon Donovan scored. That was his first World Cup. He was a rising star at the time, which we know, of course, has gone on to become a Hall of Famer. So that win propelled them into the quarterfinal round, and that's the furthest that we've been in the modern era. That was the farthest that we'd have been in the modern era. So those are kind of like my top favorite moments, days.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those, sticks out in my mind, and even like 1950, knowing the story about it, obviously we weren't around for it, but all the
Right.
other ones that you mentioned where we were around for, in some cases for me at the game, is very very fun to relive that. But I asked this question, right, because there's obviously 366 days in a leap year, and 365 days in a normal year, and there's some things that occur all on the same day. How did you make
Yeah.
the decision of what to include on particular days that had multiple iconic moments?
Yeah, great question. Well, I decided that this is like a fun thing because this is all fun and interesting to me, but I also wanted it to be fun and interesting for other people too. Not just like, an encyclopedia version. There's those books out there in the history and you can find out, but I wanted this to just sort of be fun. Pick a day. I even like sort of tease and say, if you want to get this, open it up and find out what happened on your birthday, right? Like just like a fun
Hmm.
thing. So you would sort of know. So the goal wasn't to have this 365, 366 page book. That would have been too much, right? So I was like, it's just going to be this couple of sentences, boom, 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 somebody's birthday, match score, somebody scored a goal, highlight, and then just, in and out. And so I said, okay, as soon as I started noticing there was more than one thing that happened on some of these days, I have to cut this short. I can't just write 10 things, everything that happened on that day. So I said, okay, let's see, maybe let's make it maximum 5. Then it started to get it kind of too much. I said, okay, maximum 3. I just got to pick what I think is the most interesting to me and hope that's the most interesting to other people because I didn't want it to be this, 500-page tome like an encyclopedia. And so that was kind of like, if it was a great goal, if it was, some highlighting somebody that we all knew, a Hall of Famer, I would include that. Sometimes it was, I found out in the course of writing this that the US plays a lot of times Mexico. So sometimes
Hmm.
if it was in Mexico, I was like, okay, well, maybe I won't include that one. If it wasn't a significant, like, a World Cup qualifier or a tournament match, I would just not include the Mexico match and kind of mix it up because there was an other country that maybe the US kind of played. So that's how I kind of decided.
So on the flip side, I'm sure there were some days that you had to try and figure out how to link it back to the U.S. men's national team because, of course, there's several months out of the year where the team doesn't play, and several dates that are largely excluded from any moments on the field. So how did you
Yes.
kind of piece together the gaps?
Yes. Well, fortunately, there were birthdays, so that was helpful.
Hmm.
There were player birthdays. There were signings, like or a player, not a player would be a coach would be a coach would come on, a manager would come on. Sometimes there were federation. It was federation news. Sometimes there was Hall of Fame news. Sometimes there were, there was also in memoriam. I have things that happened. Sometimes there were events that the team participated in that were away from game stuff. And again, there were, like you said, there were things. There was never a match on January 1st. There's never a match on Christmas Day. There's never a match, like really late November. So there's a couple of days, and then I try to fill it in with if there weren't birthdays, if there weren't other significant U.S. men's national team related. I kind of drew from players who participated in the North American Soccer League, some of the older soccer leagues, pre, World War II that I didn't even know about, major indoor soccer, major league soccer. I just kind of pieced it all together and tried to tie it back. And as well as sometimes I had to put in sort of a fun fact if it was just absolutely, I think I came down to the end and there were like 37 days. Because I originally started this with a database, literally an
Hmm.
Excel spreadsheet from January 1st all the way down to December 31st. And I just started plugging in dates and things that happened and to like got toward the end, then I was looking through the histories and the media guides to find out what matches were played to fill in dates that were missing, and at the end I had about 37 dates with nothing, and I had to sort of scramble and try to come up with a US soccer or a women's soccer or something soccer related fun fact to fill in those gaps.
I like there was one. I'm blanking on the date. I think it was in January because obviously there's not a lot that goes on in January
Yeah.
outside of January
Yeah.
camp. And there was one where you kind of said the creation of Route 66, and you talked about the states that it went through, and you
Yes.
said, except for Oklahoma, the U.S. has played in all these states. Like so, it's a
Yes.
way to
Yes.
link back a historical
Exactly.
fact to the team.
Exactly. Tied it in as best I could. A lot of the fun facts, I tried to tie it back in. It's like, for example, in May. as well. I remember coming up with May, in the US, the first Saturday of May is typically Kentucky Derby, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I mentioned that, and I tied it into the fact that, well, they've never played in Kentucky, and there's only, the women's team and now and a men's team in Kentucky, but there's the U.S. men's national team has never played in Kentucky. Yeah. So I had fun with the fun facts too.
Yeah. So with some of the research, what do you think was the thing that you learned the most about this team during the course of trying to figure out all these different dates and all these different facts?
Yeah, I got a better appreciation for a lot of the players that I never saw play, like the Tab Ramos, let's see, Marcelo Balboa. I never really got to get to see the goalkeeper, Tony Miola. I never really saw much of Alexi Lalas play, so Kobe Jones for that matter. I got a lot of respect for the players that I've never seen before. And I recently saw that 1994 documentary that just came out. So that was really cool to see that as well. And I think I learned a lot also about the North American Soccer League. And because it filled the void where there was nothing, the national team wasn't qualifying for the World Cup. So there was a lot of players in there, names and stuff that I didn't know about, had never heard of. So that was all interesting and cool. And someone also asked me what was one of the things that surprised me, and was finding out that Desmond Armstrong and Jimmy Banks were the first players to play in the World Cup for the U.S. men's national team in 1990. I had heard about Eddie Hawkins, right? Every Black History Month has come up a couple of times, and I sort of knew he was the pioneer, but I didn't know about those two being the first to play in a World Cup match. So that was also very, very interesting. Yeah, just got a much better appreciation for the players that I had never seen play. Of course, I wish I had seen them play. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of those guys you bring up are some that I also, when I was doing my research for Black History Month articles, was like, hey, I don't know about this guy either. So let's learn together. And I appreciate the fact that this is kind of your journey,
Yes.
literally day by day
Yes.
of putting this together. So really, really appreciate that. Last thing about the book before I close out with a couple other questions, but what would you like fans to know? What would you most want fans to know about this book before they pick it up?
Again, that it's just sort of this fun, kind of easy breezy way to get, some information about some of the players, his historical players, the players who are currently playing. So you get to learn a little bit about the past history and the current history, if that makes sense. You get information about the World Cup. As a matter of fact, as I was working on this, after I plugged in all of the dates into the database, then I had to go back and write it all month by month. I actually ended up writing June and July at the end because there was just so much World Cup history, and I wanted to make sure I got it all correct, and I wanted to make sure I, included what was interesting, and it was like so, just great to learn about it. So I just want people to kind of just like be able to pick it up and say, hey, well, I didn't know that about this he was a Hall of Famer. Oh, I never saw that. Oh, I didn't know the team had, a great game in the 2002 World Cup. You know what I mean? And how they survived the 2014 Group of Death World Cup. Just to let people get learn a little bit of lesson about some of the great players, the Hall of Famers, so that they can have a little appreciation and a little background before this World Cup starts. That's why I published it before this World Cup.
Well, yeah, I was going to say this book is out on the eve of the 2026 World Cup, of course, taking place across North America. I know you're traveling all across North America as I am, but what excites you the most about this tournament beginning here in just a few days?
It is quite a tingling excitement. I know that we were heavily involved in DC with the draw, lots, in December, and there was excitement. And then we kind of, with my friends and peers and people that I've been working with, we kind of noticed that there wasn't much talking about the World Cup. It sort of like died down. And some people were saying, well, here in the States, okay, it's January, the end of January, we're getting ready for the Super Bowl. And then it's March Madness. And then Major League, baseball season kicks off. So we can't really focus on getting ready for the World Cup when it's 100 days out. But I think I have noticed in the last 2-3 weeks that the excitement is picking up, and people outside of my football and soccer circles are talking about it, and it's like a buzz here and it's a buzz in all these different cities. Even in DC, where we don't even have matches, there's, like the buzz is picking up. So I think it's just going to be, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about being able to participate and to see the excitement for people. And it's also, it's kind of like this, people talk about representation, and Kobe Jones talked about representation in that documentary, but it's like now little kids will get to see this on home soil and feel that they can be part of this magical world of football. Magical world because it's exciting, but it's not magical because they can be a part of it. So yeah, I think that's what's the most exciting, that the younger generation will get to see this on home soil and feel such a connection to it that it will move things forward for them, could move things forward for them. Like someone's going to be watching this and say, I can do that. And maybe 20 years from now, we will see them doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember 94. I lived in Detroit. I had moved to Dallas that year. I didn't get a chance to go to games in either city, right? The U.S. played in both cities. So this time around, I was like, I'm not missing this. And for the people close to me, I'm like, I want to make sure that as many people experience it as possible, because as you said, the legacy of 94, how pivotal a moment it was for building what the soccer space is, for better or worse. That is what 2026 can be in a different way of continuing that trajectory of growth and making it where it's more accessible to so many different people. Tracey, before we get out of here, tell people about some of the work that you're doing now and what your plans are for the World Cup with the newsletter and just with the traveling for the book.
Well, one of the things I'm going to be doing, the World Cup preview part 2 issue with so many things going on, I couldn't do it in one month. So May had some information, and now the June issue will come out next Tuesday. And that's going to have the rest of the information about the World Cup preview. I'm going to Mexico City tomorrow, actually, and I'm going to participate in the American Outlaws, the fan group's watch party on Saturday, the U.S. men's national team versus Germany on Saturday. So I'm going to be at that watch party and do a sort of a Q&A afterward. And also I'm going to be participating in the World Football Summit, which is happening in Mexico City on Wednesday and Thursday. And then I will head to Atlanta, and I'm hoping to work on something with the sorry, I can't think of the name of the organization, but I'm going to be working on an event in Atlanta as well, and then coming to New York City for the end of the tournament, watching the rest of the tournament with my family and friends here in New York City. And then I'm also hoping to work on another book, which will be about the women's national team for next year, for the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Because I will tell you, my birthday had only, until a couple years ago, had only had one U.S. game, and that was when they won the 1991 M&M Cup for the Women's World Championship, which is now the Women's World Cup. So
when's your birthday?
November 30th.
November 30th. Okay, so we got to find out what happened to November 30th.
Well, that you're going to put that in there. I already got your thing. The first World Cup win title on my birthday, can't top that.
There you go. So You're right. Absolutely.
That'll be cool. The book that you currently have is called United States Soccer on This Day, a 365-day journey of games, goals, and moments in U.S. men's national team history, and it's available on BookBaby and Amazon. I'm looking forward to getting a copy, hopefully in time. I have to order it and make sure it gets here before I start traveling so that I can read it, but I have read the first half of it, so I'm waiting to read the second half here in a few days. Tracey, thanks so much for doing this and just creating a nice little history that we can look back upon. And here's hoping that you're going to have to do some rewrites this summer with the men's national team.
Yes.
Make it some more history.
Great. Thank you.
And I just want to once again thank Tracey for being on the show and talking about this book and some of the great moments that we can relive in U.S. men's national team history through this book. There's going to be some days that have some great moments, and there's going to be some dates you have to check. You have to choose, see what she has picked for us, and see what she kind of narrowed down to on a day where a lot of stuff happened over the course of the history of U.S. soccer in this country. Again, that book, United States Soccer on This Day, a 365-day journey of games, goals, and moments in U.S. men's national team history. Available on Amazon, available on BookBaby. Look in the show notes for links to the book there. That will do it for episode 191 of the USA Soccer Cast. Thank you for listening. Remember, you can find us on Blue Sky, Twitter, and YouTube. Follow us on all those sites at USA Soccercast. Subscribe, rate, and review our shows. It helps us get in front of new people, and it's greatly appreciated. Tell your friends about us. Finally, head to linktree.com/USA Soccercast to check out our affiliate links and our stimulus store. We have everything you need to watch the beautiful game and follow your teams, and use of those links also helps support the show. We'll talk to you again soon, y'all. Peace.